American Jews are one of the most prominent minority groups in the United States, with a long and complex history. The history of their presence is over 350 years old, dating back to the mid-17th century, when the first Jewish settlers arrived. Today, the Jewish population in the U.S. is estimated at around 7 to 7.5 million people, which makes it the second largest Jewish population in the world after Israel. Jewish Americans make up about 2 to 2.5% of the U.S. population. New York City has the largest Jewish population of any city in the U.S., with over 1 million Jews, and its wider metropolitan area contains a significant share of the country's Jewish population. It is also often considered the largest Jewish urban center outside Israel, and among the largest in the world overall. Jews follow different religious traditions that include Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform Judaism, though there are Jews who don't affiliate with any traditions. Most Jews in the United States are of Ashkenazi ancestry, while Sephardi and Mizrahi communities are present but form much smaller minorities. The Jew population in the U.S. emerged after a series of multiple migrations over many centuries. These migrations can be broadly divided into 5 different waves. Firstly, there were the early migrations in the 17th to 18th centuries, primarily involving Sephardic Jews. Secondly, there was significant German Jewish migration in the 19th century from Central Europe. Thirdly, there was a mass migration of Eastern European Jews from the late 19th century to the early 20th century, as they fled persecution in Eastern Europe. There was a limited migration of Jews during the Nazi period and the Second World War. Finally, after World War II, there was renewed immigration, particularly of Soviet Jews during the Cold War. Joachim Gans, a Jewish metallurgist from present-day Czech Republic, is widely regarded as the first recorded Jew to set foot in what is now the United States. He arrived in 1585 with an English expedition led by Sir Walter Raleigh to the Roanoke colony in present-day North Carolina. However, it wasn't until later that the first permanent Jewish community was established in the U.S. by Sephardic Jews. In 1654, a group of 23 Jewish refugees from Recife in Dutch Brazil arrived in New Amsterdam, modern-day New York City, fleeing the Portuguese reconquest and the Inquisition. Their arrival led to a dispute with colonial governor Peter Stuyvesant, who attempted to expel them, but the Dutch West India Company intervened and allowed them to remain. This group laid the foundation for Jewish communal life in North America, including the congregation that would become Congregation Shearith Israel, the oldest Jewish congregation in the United States. During the American Revolutionary period, Jews participated in the struggle for independence both militarily and financially, with figures such as Haim Salomon playing a notable role in supporting the Patriot cause. The second wave began in the early 19th century, when Jews from German-speaking regions such as Bavaria, Prussia, and Austria started arriving in the U.S. These migrants were often motivated by restrictive laws, limited civil rights, and social discrimination in their homelands. A larger wave occurred between the 1830s and the 1880s. During this time, tens of thousands of German-speaking Jews left Europe due to political instability, especially following the failed revolutions of 1848. Upon arrival, many German Jewish immigrants settled in cities like New York City, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati, though some moved westward, becoming merchants and traders in smaller towns across the Midwest and South. Culturally, German-speaking Jews played a key role in shaping American Judaism. They were instrumental in the development of Reform Judaism in the United States, which sought to modernize Jewish practice and adapt it to American society. Institutions like the Hebrew Union College, founded in 1875 by Isaac Meyer Wise, became central to this movement. They established tight-knit communities with their own synagogues, charitable organizations, and social institutions. By 1880, there were approximately 250,000 Jews in America, with the majority being of German origin. The next wave was by far the biggest waves of immigration of Jews to the U.S. Between 1880 and 1924, around 2 million Jews, mostly Ashkenazi, made their way from Eastern Europe to the United States. The majority came from the Russian Empire, but there were also significant numbers from Austria-Hungary and Romania. Following the violent pogroms of 1881 to 1882, particularly after the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, anti-Jewish violence and persecution sanctioned by local authorities became rampant. On top of that, discriminatory laws like the May Laws placed severe restrictions on where Jews could live, work, and own property. Most were forced to stay within the Pale of Settlement, a region that offered very few economic opportunities. The Kishinev pogrom further pushed Jewish migration from the Russian Empire, as the violence, fueled by anti-Semitic rumors and tolerated by those in power, made it clear just how dangerous life had become for Jews. The United States, on the other hand, symbolized real opportunity and relative freedom. After its opening in 1892, Ellis Island became the primary processing center for incoming immigrants. The vast majority settled in major industrial cities like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Chicago, with New York City emerging as the epicenter. However, the Immigration Act of 1924, also known as the Johnson-Reed Act, imposed strict national origin quotas that significantly limited immigration from Eastern Europe. During the Second World War and Nazi period, hundreds of thousands of Jews fled persecution in Europe. Many sought refuge abroad, including in the United States, though U.S. immigration quotas sharply limited admissions. Escalating violence, economic marginalization, forced displacement, and the threat of deportation and extermination drove Jewish families to emigrate. The events of Kristallnacht in 1938 intensified the refugee crisis and increased pressure on countries to accept Jewish refugees. The Wagner-Rogers Bill in 1939, which proposed admitting 20,000 Jewish children, failed in Congress. Despite these barriers, at least 110,000 Jewish refugees entered the United States between 1933 and 1941. After the Holocaust, countless Jewish survivors found themselves uprooted across Eastern and Central Europe. The United States emerged as one of a key destination for some of these individuals, thanks in large part to the Displaced Persons Act of 1948. This legislation allowed around 393,000 displaced Europeans to immigrate, including roughly 80,000 Jewish refugees from countries like Poland, Germany, Hungary, and Romania. The immigration landscape changed even more with the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which eliminated national origin quotas and opened the door wider for immigrants from outside Western Europe, including those from Soviet and Eastern Bloc nations. During the Cold War, particularly from the early 1970s onward, there was a notable increase in the emigration of Soviet Jews, driven by both international pressure and shifts in internal policies. The Jackson-Varnick Amendment tied U.S. trade relations to the freedom of emigration, which helped boost the number of Jewish people leaving the Soviet Union. Those who were denied permission to leave became known as refuseniks. In total, over 200,000 Soviet Jews made their way out during the 1970s and 1980s. By the late 1980s, restrictions on emigration from the Soviet Union had loosened considerably. In 1990, a record year, about 228,000 Jews departed the Soviet Union, with a significant number also moved to the United States and other countries.